What is going on, boys and girls of YouTube? We're doing another top 5 video. Today we're going over solo. Solo has made an interesting role because the beginning of this year people are complaining about how bad it is, and then you saw mages and hunters get a little nerfed and changed and crit and stuff. They've been buffing warrior items ever so slightly. At first they nerfed Bluestone. They nerfed Bluestone, but they've been buffing the tankier items. This whole year has been a shift. We're at a point now where soul laners are back to being very deadly and very strong. Some a little bit more than others. And we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna cover really just where we're at, why we're here, and what's happened. So let's jump into it. Before I get to the actual top 5s, a big thing you've noticed is movement speed, basically regrowth style warriors became very big. In this most recent patch, they buffed an item called Phalanx, which is more of an auto attack warrior item to give more stats when you're being auto attacked. So it's a really good defensive item. I was expecting this to impact the meta decently. It has not. It was not as good in practice as it was on paper, so you're not actually seeing that. I'm literally watching SPL right before recording this video. It's not applying to this SPL game, so we're going to talk about the top 5. First up, Vamana in this most recent patch got fixed. His shield wasn't working correctly. Basically could give more health in some situations, or less health, less shield or more health shield in some situations than his ult, and then they capped out his ult at 1,000 shield max over the course of the ult. So it's technically a nerf. It doesn't matter. Vamano's probably closer to 1 or 2 at the beginning of this, before this patch. With this patch, he's dropping down to number 5. It's very, very simple. It's super simple why he's so good. His team fight, he's unkillable, and he gets so much power and attack speed from his ult and passive that he's able to kill any squishy, and they aren't able to kill him first. It's that simple. There's nothing else to it. He can ultimate and kill somebody for free without dying. It's not a difficult thing to do. It doesn't take a whole lot of skill. It's pretty much holding left click. Outside of that, he is fairly safe. If he's ganked, he can ult to survive. The ult gives him the ability to walk through player-made walls, so gods like Odin or Thor, Ymir can't really screw him over in these small, tighter jungles. That actually just benefits him because it funnels that person's team into weird spots, and Vamana's able to kill more people. His laning phase is very solid because he's got movement, he's got range clear, he has good clear, he has good AoE clear, he can poke while clearing, he can end up getting kills off of it, he can dive towers because of his ultimate. He kind of has a mix of everything right now, and the items paired with his passive getting extra power for defense just makes him that much stronger. He's a very, very good god. There are a ton of different ways you could technically play him. Before this patch, people were going a lot of defense with 1 or 2 crit items and killing people. Now we're just back to defense and attack speed killing people. You see Vamana even in the jungle because defense and attack speed just kills people. He's very, very, very strong. His biggest downside is hard CC before he gets in his ultimate. So if you're locked down for getting your ultimate, you can die very easily. It doesn't happen as much, but there are a bunch of combos and gods that can kind of make it difficult to play. It's also, he's not higher than top 5. I'm explaining how simple he is. If you ever make the wrong decision and ult in the wrong spot, or ult when someone has movement, you can waste your ult very easily. It's not as simple as literally just pressing ult, but if you jump on somebody, use your kit, they dash away, then it's as simple as just pressing ult. That's kind of the point. That's why he's number 5 on the list. Number 4 on the list, I personally don't think this should be surprising. I think number 4 and 3 are kind of even, could be swapped back and forth. It's gonna be up to, you guys can argue it however you want. Achilles is just nuts. He's so consistent over the years. Even when warriors were bad, Achilles was good in my opinion. It's a mix of his kit, but his number 2. His second ability is one of the best abilities in Smite, one of the best regular abilities in Smite. If you've ever looked at this ability, it gives you 20% protections increase at max rank, 10% power increase at max rank. It heals you when you use an ability, gives you CCR. The big aspect is these two. As a tank, gaining extra power off of your 1 or 2, hybrid items, or hybrid, they're not hybrid items anymore, but power items. This is massive because it gives you a 3rd power item essentially, and then this is massive because it goes over the protection cap. This can put you, I think Achilles caps around 390 protections now when his 2 is up. So you're tankier than everyone else in the game. You're getting an extra power item essentially. You're healing. And you have high base numbers. 320 on your 1 with 80% scaling. You've got 200 on your 3, which is proc twice. So this is 400 on your 3 with 90% scaling because it's twice. You have an execute, which just wraps the whole kit up. You have a super tanky warrior that can drop his whole kit, and if anyone on his team does any bit of extra damage, he can just execute you. He plays like an unkillable assassin, and that's how he's always played. He's a very big threat. A lot of people do struggle with him in lane, and that is why I have him in number 4 over number 3 and number 2. His laning phase can go poorly, but as long as you aren't behind, if you aren't getting killed on cooldown, essentially, you will be perfectly fine when you rotate in team fights, especially with the way the game is being played right now. He also does benefit from shield regrowth. So, as we talked about, healing and movement speed seems to be pretty core. Pretty much all of these gods can benefit from regrowth, except for maybe Vamana, but Vamana's got movement in his ult. So it kind of counters the fact. This is just the movement characters. It's not even like speed stacking. It's just the characters that get a little bit extra movement are extra strong right now. So that's why I have Achilles in at this number 4 slot. I would highly recommend playing him a lot if you are new to the game. Mechanically, he's not very difficult to play. His biggest mechanical aspect to his kit is auto attack canceling off the 3. So with your 3, you'll cancel it, you'll auto, you'll 3 again, you'll cancel it, you'll auto, and you could do a ton of burst auto attacks in between. It's very similar to Susano's 1. It's a little bit strange to get used to at first, but it's actually very easy once you just slow down and process it. Also, him having a hard CC in a kit with mobility and an execute just kind of secures his presence in every team fight is how I'll word it. So Achilles number 4 on our list. Number 3 on our list is Guan Yu. I hate Guan Yu because it's Guan Yu. Guan Yu's just really strong. He has 3 protection shreds if you didn't know, so he's very good at killing tanks or squishies on his own or with anyone else. His 2 is a slow, doing a very high base damage. His 1 is a heal. Now the biggest reason Guan Yu is top, he was changed going into this year. When they changed healing gods like Hell and Afro, he was one of the gods that gained something from this. His 1 gives 1 second cooldown to your teammates. Gives a 2-second cooldown to yourself. If you're running around with max CDR and spam healing on cooldown, I can't tell you how OP this is. And it's not just a little bit of healing. It's 100 healing. It's valuable healing. But it's not just the healing. It's the aggression. You're flipping the script by healing damage that's being done and also allowing your teammates to use abilities more often. And the fact that you get to spam this 1 because you get a 2-second cooldown on your 1. So if you're running full CDR on this god, you're talking about pulling this 13-second cooldown down to like the 8-9 seconds. And then 2 seconds off, you're talking about a 6-second cooldown. So between a heal, your 2 and your 3, you're always spamming an ability, as well as your teammates are now also able to spam an ability. Then you have a CC immune ultimate with one of the highest base numbers in Smite. It slows and it stuns. Another very bloated kit. We're talking about healing, also giving you cooldown and your teammates cooldown. A slow with high damage. It's also got a boosted slow. Your passive has effects on this stuff. If you didn't know, boosted healing, boosted slow, boosted protection, stolen. These are protections you're stealing. So you're shredding the protections and giving to yourself. So you're becoming tankier. You're doing good damage with this. And then you also have an ult where you can use it to escape team fights. You can use it to engage team fights. You can use it to live in lane for being ganked. Use it to dive. This god has a little bit of everything. He's another god similar to Achilles where some people struggle in lane depending on their matchups. And it's mainly because they don't know the matchups. They don't know what's the proper way to play it and they put themselves in bad situations. If you aren't in that case where you know your matchup or you just play your matchup correctly, this god going into team fights has one of the best team fight presences in terms of grouping that there is in Smite and there ever has been in Smite from a warrior. I personally don't think there's a way to argue around that. I think you're crazy if you don't value giving just a regular ability, giving cooldown to your teammates while also healing and giving yourself cooldown. And then just the rest of his kit synergizing timing wise almost perfectly. You've got 13-second cooldowns on everything. So if you start with your 2 into a dash into a 3 and then you heal, your dash is usually coming back up and then your 3 is coming back up. In the meantime, you have your ult whenever you need it. His kit flows. A lot of warriors kits have very little downtime. He is another one that adds to that. And that's why I like him so much. That's why I have him at the number 3 slot. Number 2 slot, despite being nerfed or reverted. So 2 patches ago, he was buffed. They reduced the cooldown on his 1 and his 2. So they were both 11 seconds. You see here, they reverted it back to 12 seconds. But at the same time as that other earlier patch, they gave attack speed to his 3. So one of the hardest early hitting warriors in the game with auto attacks, he gets attack speed for no reason, which is nuts. He's one of the few warriors who has simple displacement off of the 2 pull. He gets extra displacement off of his stun. He's got team fight value out of having a stun. He's one of the more raw damage warriors where he's not exactly safe all the time, but between his healing, This healing is a lot, by the way. When you are taking damage, this is nuts. You're also getting 60 protections, which is nuts, by the way. Remember Achilles, we were talking about his extra protections. Paired with the high power and high damage he's able to do and have, and then pair it with an ultimate that can be used as a CC immunity, can be used to kill teammates running away. This has a base damage of 800 with 100% scaling, by the way. This is insanely high for having a stun, a pull, a self-heal, which is going to be giving movement because you're going to go regrowth. And then adding, look at the base numbers, by the way, almost 400 on the 1, 90% scaling, 290 on the 2, 70% scaling. So let's say you have 0 power, which is never going to happen. You're hitting for, we're going to round up a little bit and then round down, 400, 300, so that's 700, 800, it's 1500 damage off of your kit. This will usually not have 0 power. You'll never have 0 power. So we'll say it's 1500. It's probably more like 16 to 17 to 1800 potentially. As well as auto attacks in between there with the auto attack canceling. You're doing way more than that. His kit isn't a hard kit dump. It's not like you're stuck out of position because you're on lower cooldowns while also displacing a lot of people and having the CC immunity from your ultimate. You're able to, use your kit rotation, run around with your 3 proc, heal it back up, use your kit rotation again, especially in the mid game. A lot of people don't build anti-heal until late game because you're a solo laner, so you're able to take advantage of that. Even if anti-heal is built, most people will not target you because your backline will be creating just as much pressure as you will be because you are a massive threat. Most people just run from Hercules. They can't deal with it. He is number 2 on my list. The fact that his cooldown was a little bit lower last patch is even scarier to just think about right now. The nerfed version of him is insanely hard to deal with. It is very, I don't know how I literally randomly get friend or party invites all the time. They're not my friends list. I don't know who these people are. Anyway, Hercules number 2 on our list. Number 1 on our list. I already know people are gonna be like, wait, what? It's tier. Why is it tier? If you didn't watch patch notes, you are nuts. They buffed here. And the buff is, I will say, simple. It's not crazy intricate. See, his ult now has a different image. His ults are now affected by stances. So your 3 stance changes. You have an offensive stance essentially and a defensive stance. Remember a while ago they made it so when you're in offensive stance you still get some protections, and when you're in defensive stance you still get some power. Just remember that. Now the ultimate now has 2 stances. When in a damage stance, your ult hits for extra damage, an extra 150 essentially, but it's a lot of extra damage. But that's not what matters. That's not the big deal here. When in defensive stance, your ultimate still hits for 600 plus 120% scaling. You slow still. The duration of the slow is 3 seconds, and then you stun. So you have AoE, mass AoE CC in a kit that has heavy CC in it already. So tier used to not be the end of the world because if he got near you and won you, you would beat. Well, now you're going to have to decide whether you're going to eat the ult into some extra damage because you're in defensive stance. You do this. So someone's going to ult you and then they're going to defense combo you. So you're not going to want to beads defensive combo. So you're either going to beads the stun to avoid that, or you're going to get free damage done to you. And then he's still going to have the offensive 1 fearless to throw into you, which you will then beads. But by then his defensive stance stuff is back up. And that defensive damage, remember we're talking about the defensive damage, is not that much lower than the power damage. The assault damage is unfair here because it's hitting twice. It's actually like 2 times plus the end hit with an auto attack. So it's extra than this, but still defensive stance hitting for 270. Did we not get to see defensive stance here? Oh, is the damage the same? So apparently I didn't even realize the damage was the same in this. 220. And remember, you do have extra power off of your 3 this whole time. No matter what. No matter what stance you're in, you're still getting extra power. So between these 2 abilities, hitting for 500. That ultimate slammed you for 600 plus 120% scaling. It stunned you. That's over 1,000 damage already before doing any offensive abilities. Before any autos. Before scaling. Really, before any scaling. His cooldowns are not high, boys and girls. His 2 is on an 8-second cooldown. Before CDR. He will have full CDR. He has passive 10%. He's a warrior. His 1 is on a longer cooldown, 15 seconds. But even with 40% CDR, you talk about bringing this down into the 8-second mark. That's low cooldown when you're going to rotate to another set of abilities and use them and then swap back. This is only on a 6-second cooldown with CDR. Your ultimate's not even on that long of a cooldown. 70 seconds before scaling, or before CDR. That's short. This ult is up twice in teamfights, easily. 2 stuns, 2 AoE stuns in teamfights. He's nuts. He's uncomparable. People were kind of roasting the healing nerf to him. His healing's still very strong and very relevant in lane, and he wins lane very easily because of the sustain and his high poke and his ability to turn ganks and push people into towers and kind of move around however he wants willingly. And then if he's ever out of position, he can use that ultimate to get out if he didn't use it to stun to engage, which gave him the pressure in the first place. So that's why I have tier at number 1. There are other good warriors. I've done this in my other videos. Just because they're in top 5 doesn't mean they're bad. There are a lot of gods that have value and presence. Wukong's on the come up right now as a damage warrior again because they buffed his 1 damage. It's actually very annoying in ranked, which I never had a problem with him before they buffed the 1, which is crazy. Odin still has crazy counterplay into a lot of these healing gods. I expected Amma and Bellona to be a little bit better with the Phalanx buff, but that doesn't seem to be the case. I also think Horus is still a solid solo laner. I'd rather have him in support, but I think he's a solid solo laner. So that's where I'm at on our top 5 solo lane gods. Watch the SPL. You'll see most of these gods get played all the time. In ranked, obviously, SPL is a little bit different than ranked. Ranked has actually, it's very different than the SPL, but for solo, it's there's similarities. It's a lot of 1v1ing. It's a lot of dealing with counter ganks, and it's a lot of grouping and running out the enemy team. It's what warriors do, right? So these gods will do it for you. Hopefully you liked the video. If you did, hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. Then I'll see you in the video later tomorrow, the next day, and the next day.